In a lot of my videos, I show off these, my photography sketchbooks, and in a recent video I got a comment asking if I could kind of go over how you kind of start making a sketchbook like this. Whether it's going to be for school or for personal use like I do, this is my guide to photography sketchbooks. We're going to start by showing off my A-level work. This is my second year of A-level work, 4 sketchbooks, and in these you definitely can see why I start to begin to have a style in sketchbooking. If we look at some of my earlier work, it's just boring. It's text, contact sheets, evaluations. That's pretty much it. You do have to bear in mind that these were made to be marked. I'm making them to get a good grade. So I do kind of go on a bit and do a bit of word vomit, where I kind of just talk about pointless shit that I wouldn't normally do. For example, looking at the contact sheets, you can see where I've annotated nearly every image, talking about what I like and what I don't like, even if it is just with pen, drawing lines over what is good and what isn't. One thing I really don't like about these early sketchbooks is the negative space. You can kind of see my words are spaced apart and the edges and borders are just boring, which is why I started to develop a style which me and my mates called sketchbook filler. Anything related to film, like the box, the manuals, the instructions, anything you can find whatsoever is sketchbook filler. You can put it in a corner and it'll take up space and it will work. I have a lot, and I mean a lot of just old film boxes and bits of negative that I haven't used that I use for sketchbook filler now, and it's definitely something that I'd love to do. When I started implementing it first, it was mainly 120 backing paper, as it kind of worked as a nice little border around images. But it quickly also adapted into having the film box that I used, because I used a lot of expired film. I'd have the date on the box to show how old the film is. In my A-level work, we were kind of forced into this A3 sketchbook, but I kind of do like it. However, some pages I definitely found you benefit by cutting and using them as a middle flap. Kind of just have a bit more information, so one double page spread can be an entire project instead of having to split it off between multiple pages and make a mess. However, you definitely can overdo this, and sometimes I did. You'll see where I've had like 3 or 4 pages cut up consecutively, so it's multiple flaps. It gets kind of messy, you can easily miss them. I definitely recommend only cutting up 1 page per double page spread. But you can really see in some of these later sketchbooks, I'm really quite proud of how some of them are laid out. They're very condensed, and yes, it maybe looks like there's less information on the page, but I can guarantee you that information is more condensed and concise. And it also makes the pages visually appealing to look at. As my A-levels came to an end, I realised I really want to continue doing sketchbooks. It kind of made me feel like I had a purpose. It felt really important to have something physical that I can look back at. It kind of acted like an archive of all my work, and I was really proud of it. I feel like every photographer should have a physical archive of their work, because what is the point of taking images you really like and letting them sit on a hard drive while it gathers dust? So many times I've done projects where I didn't really like the results at first, but having them printed out and letting them sit for a while, I've realised I really want to go back and do it again. So that's why I think sketchbooks are kind of important, and why I wanted to continue doing them after A-levels. So this is why I introduced my personal sketchbook, conveniently called Fuck This Shit. The title comes from my main premise of what I do in photography. It's very alternate and destructive. So fuck that shit, meaning kind of destroy that film. Obviously, looking at the books themselves, you can clearly tell they are messy, and that is the style I wanted to go with for these sketchbooks. Creating these sketchbooks, I use a lot of sketchbook filler, like I did in my A-levels. The stationery I use for this kind of stuff is 1 large marker, 1 small marker, a normal pen. One of my favourite things is definitely tape. I use a lot of masking tape, double-sided tape. One of my favourite tapes I own is actually some fragile tape. I love using that stuff in these sketchbooks. When I said this video was a guide to making sketchbooks, I more wanted to be an inspiration of what you can do. When starting this, I didn't really have any major inspiration, but just a look on Pinterest and you will see things like it which go against the norm and are very messy. Looking through these sketchbooks, there's definitely a lot of development of my work. The first one I really don't like. I pretty much made this just after finishing A-levels. I had no access to a darkroom, so I was just kind of going off negatives I already had, and I wasn't really printing out my final images. So the best pages in there are the ones I did on some Fujifilm Instax. Although this book is my favourite, it definitely set the precedent to what I want all the other books to be like. The second one is definitely my favourite. You'll see some of the images I've actually taken on this channel in my book, some of the pylons I've taken recently, self-portraits, stuff like that. All the pages are very unique. I kind of want them to be interactive, where you're sometimes folding stuff out. While the first and second took me nearly a year to finish, the third one I finished in about 2 months. A lot of that is due to the cyanotypes in the back that take up about nearly a third of the book. One thing I definitely experimented more with in this book are final images. In the second one I had a few, in this one I actually dedicate a lot of space to final images. For example, my roll of Lomography Turquoise takes up a few pages just on the finals. This book definitely isn't my favourite, mainly because of the Cyanotypes kind of clogging up the back, but there is a lot that I do like in the sketchbook. Moving on to the fourth one, which I started in July, I've definitely focused more on displaying some of my final images in it. For example, this set of lumen prints I experimented with. A lot of the time, even if the image is small, I will still give it a whole page, and normally I'll add a bit of masking tape on the back, mainly because of the beige colours of the masking tape work really well with the kind of brown tones of the lumen prints, and I really like how it looks together on the page. Like I said before, I know I called this video a guide to sketchbooks, but it definitely is more of a show and tell about what you can do with sketchbooks. These are very personal to me, and I like to put a lot of my creative energy into them, and I want people to do the same to their own sketchbooks. Especially if you're going for a messy kind of aesthetic, do whatever you want. Nothing should stop you. That about wraps up this video. It was a bit of a more rambly one, I suppose. I have been ill for the past week, so sorry if I have sounded a bit off in this video. Thank you for watching. As always, Matt out.